If a retail or e-commerce business makes $1.2 million in a year, does this mean that it makes roughly $100,000 every month? For most retail businesses, this is not the case. That's because a lot of retail businesses are subject to the effect of seasonality, which is a term that refers to a predictable surge in sales during a specific time of the year due to a certain recurring event or season. Let's see some examples. In the US and most Western countries, most retail businesses see their highest sales in the fourth quarter of the year because of the holiday shopping season, which starts at Thanksgiving and extends until Christmas. A lot of retailers consider this to be their make or break time of the year, and they plan for it very carefully. Another example is the back-to-school season for retailers who sell products that are related to schools and students, such as school bags, kids' shoes, and stationery. The back-to-school season is a very strong time of the year for these businesses. It typically starts around mid-July and extends until the beginning of September. The back-to-school season is also a classic example of how seasons differ from one retail segment to the other and can actually adversely affect each other. For example, during the back-to-school season, other retailers that don't sell school-related merchandise can see decreased sales. This is because parents allocate more of their budgets to back-to-school purchases, and so they decrease spending on other categories. In the Middle East, the holiday season is not as strong as in Western countries, but there is another time of the year that sees the highest sales. This time is tied to religious holidays and comes at the end of the holy month of Ramadan. The category that benefits the most at this time is the fashion category, because most families buy new clothing to wear while celebrating the feast. These examples show that different retail segments at different geographic regions are affected by different patterns of seasonality. And this is important to understand for every retailer while planning for their business. Because seasonality has a direct effect on sales and profitability, retailers need to identify the relevant seasons to their particular business and incorporate them in their planning activities. This includes financial planning, merchandise planning, and manpower planning. On the financial side, as sales are not constant every month at seasonal businesses, it is important to plan cash flow accordingly so that the business can keep operating and paying its bills in low months from the surge in sales and cash generated during the high months. This also means that the business needs to make the best out of the high season because this is what will keep it afloat during the low times of the year. In order to make the best out of the high season, the retail business needs to be ready with the right merchandise type and inventory level to support such high sales. This is done through a retail budgeting process that sets the right sales targets for each month, taking into account the business seasonality patterns. And then those sales numbers are used in the open-to-buy and merchandise planning processes to plan inventory purchases to support the planned sales. Also, due to the fact that seasons typically have a narrow window and certain merchandise can only be sold during that window, it's important to align the arrival of such merchandise on time. Any delays in receiving would mean missing on the sales for the season and having to sell this merchandise at discount, not to mention missing on the most important season for the business. Finally, to support the sales and make the most out of the season, retailers should have a proper manpower planning in place. This might require hiring additional staff only during the high seasons to support sales and operations, as the business does not need to keep this excess staffing for the rest of the year, and so it can save a lot of money by aligning its manpower planning with the patterns of seasonality that are relevant to the business. For example, many brick-and-mortar retailers in the US have temp staffing programs only for the holiday season. While seasonality is predictable for certain times during the year, there are changes that sometimes start to emerge. For example, over the last few years in some parts of the world, winter was getting warmer, and many retailers were in a position where they had excess winter merchandise that is now not in demand anymore. This was affecting the fall-winter fashion season for many fashion retailers in those regions, with negative effects on sales and inventory levels. That's why adjustments to the planning processes need to be done every year based on regular feedback from the market and the stores. And new trends and changes in seasonality or buyer behavior can be accommodated in the different planning activities to avoid major disruptions to important seasons for the retailers. Thank you for watching.